If you first of all want to explain, Rhonda, how Peter came back into your life 18 years after you gave him up for adoption.
Well, I was fortunate that the Kassigs and I communicated the entire time that Peter was growing up. And so, I had an idea of how Peter was doing, what he was interested in. They would send me pictures, and they would send me updates on his grades and what he liked in school. And so then when he turned 18, I just got a call from the adoption attorney who said that Peter wanted to meet, and he not only wanted to meet me, but he wanted to meet his brother and sister, because he was aware that he had a brother and sister. I had kept Paul and Ed up to date on my growing family as well. And so Peter then called me that same night, and we talked on the phone and agreed that we both wanted to meet. And it was the next day, and we chose to meet at a Starbucks. His mom had told me, Paula had told me, that he would be driving up in a green pickup truck, and that's how I would know it was Peter. But I knew it was Peter right away anyway, because as soon as he got out of that truck, he looks just like his little sister. So I knew it was Peter, and I met him at the door, and he just walked up to me and said, "Are you my mom?" And that was it. And we sat and talked for a really long time. He told me how much he wanted to meet me. He wanted to meet his brother and sister. He wanted to meet my husband, and he wanted to be part of the family. And so we arranged the next day for him to meet Jana and Sam.
What was that meeting like?
Oh, that was really unbelievable. I told, with my husband and I, sat Jana and Sam down and told them about their big brother. They were 12 and 10. That was not an easy conversation to try to explain, but they were both very excited. I told him he would be coming by the next day, and they had lots of questions. They wanted to know how they would know it was their big brother, because there are so many big brothers in the world, and they were worried that he would recognize them, but they wouldn't recognize him. And so I told them about the old green pickup truck that he would be driving down the street. And so they devised a plan that they would sit on the front porch pretty much all day until they saw that green pickup truck come down the street. And as soon as they did, they ran across the yard and right into the middle of the street. And Peter stopped with the truck still running and jumped out, and they just fell into a big hug right in the middle of the street. It was the purest expression of love I think I've ever seen, and they were brother and sister from that moment on. It was an immediate bond between the three of them.
Talk about the role that Peter then played in their lives as they got to know each other more. What did he mean to Jana and Sam?
Peter embraced everything in his life fully. Nothing was ever halfway with Peter, and he fully embraced being a big brother to Jana and Sam. It was just immediate. There wasn't even a period of time of awkwardness. He was their big brother. He was my son. My husband considered him a stepson. He had a key to our house. He came and went the same way that a member of the family would. He immediately took an interest in whether or not his 12-year-old sister was dating. He came over and would help Sam with his homework. They went everywhere together. They went to movies together. And, you could tell that they were trying to cram in a lot of stuff in a short period of time, because Peter was leaving for basic training. But it really was as if there had never been a lapse in time. It was as if they had always been together. And it was continued to be that way.
When Peter made his decision after coming back and serving overseas, made his decision to go back and become an aid worker, how did you react to that?
We weren't surprised because, Peter, he was really searching. He was trying to find his place in the world. And when he came back from being deployed, he tried a number of different things and really had not found what worked best for him. He had not yet found his place. So when he decided to go, although we were all a little surprised that he chose the Middle East when it was obviously sort of a hot zone and a great deal of conflict, it didn't surprise us because Peter had a big heart and he wanted to go where he thought he could make the most difference in the world and could utilize the talents that he had. So certainly we were supportive of that.
What type of contact did you and your children have with Peter while he was over there doing all of this wonderful work?
In the beginning, none at all. Peter was the type of individual that communicated a great deal for a period of time, and then Peter would stop communicating for a period of time. So really for a while we didn't know what was going on with Peter and exactly what he was doing. It was the summer before he was taken, October 1st, so it would be the summer of 2013, when he really started communicating again, particularly with Sam, his little brother.
What was it like for Sam to hear from him while he was over there in the Middle East?
Wow, it was something. I mean, Sam desperately missed his big brother. He wanted contact with him. He wanted the relationship that they had before, he wanted it back. He wanted ongoing contact with Peter. And again, it was the same as it was when they first met. It was as if there hadn't been a break in communication. They immediately started Facebooking and sharing each other's lives, getting caught up, who was doing what, where was Sam going to go to school, how was he doing in school. And they were planning to Skype just a couple of days before Peter then disappeared on October the 1st. But unfortunately that Skype never happened.
Peter was captured on October 1st of 2013.
Yes.
How did you find out what had happened?
Well, we didn't. Sam, as I mentioned, was Facebooking with Peter. They had made plans that they were going to get together for Thanksgiving that year, so the Thanksgiving of 2013, and Sam was really excited that they had made those plans. Sam missed the Skype date with Peter, and then the next day he was gone. I mean, his Facebook was gone, his organization website went dark. There was no communication at all. And at first, we didn't find that unusual, considering where he was. And I just kept reassuring Sam that it most likely was just a communication glitch, that Peter was probably changing locations and just wasn't able to get internet connection, or maybe wasn't able to get his Facebook back up. So for those first, even really for the first month, I just kept thinking, this is normal. Peter will, don't worry, Sam. Peter's going to be back in touch, and he's definitely going to see you at Thanksgiving. But as time wore on, we became increasingly concerned. Peter could at times be out of touch, but he would not be in touch with Sam like that and then just leave his little brother hanging. So Sam grew increasingly desperate. Sam was going through a very difficult time at that time in his life. So his desperation just grew as time went on. Finally, around Christmas, he wrote a letter to Paul and Ed and just asked, where is my brother and why have I not heard from him? But it was still a couple of more months. It was the end of February before we then were informed by Paul and Ed that Peter had been taken on October the 1st. And then we immediately let Jana and Sam know that that's what had happened.
Had you suspected something bad had happened to him when you had had no communication for so long?
After it had gone on for a couple of months, yes, considering where he was, I certainly did, and I know that Sam and Jana both worried a great deal that something had happened. And I think it's really unfortunate that they in particular had to suffer for 5.5 months and worry and be scared and not, the unknown is really much worse than knowing, because if you know, you can start dealing with it. They were desperate and they just wanted to know if their brother was okay.
Once they found out what had happened to Peter, that he had been captured by the so-called Islamic State, what was their reaction?
Terror. I mean, it was terrifying, and we were all scared and fearful, but at the same time hopeful at that time that the United States would be able to secure his release, and that he was still going to be able to somehow find his way back home. So while we were really scared and obviously very worried and very stressed, we did have a lot of hope. Peter's a survivor, and Peter was tough, and so if anybody was going to get through this, it was going to be Peter.
It wasn't until, I believe, about a year after that he was captured that ISIS released this video saying that he was their next execution target. Right. How did your family find out about that video?
My son actually found out first, and that was from Google alerts. He had set his phone so anytime something came up about Peter, and so I had hoped that if that happened, I wanted to know first so that I could let both of Jana and Sam know. But Sam found out first, and actually he called me to tell me that Peter was on a video. And Paula also was trying to reach me. Paula was actually calling at the same time that Sam was calling, and so she spoke with my husband. And then we went from there. It was a very dark day when that occurred.
As things progressed and we hear pretty much radio silence from this group that's holding him, what did your family know? Were you in the loop with what the government was or wasn't doing to try and get him out of there, and what the situation was?
We were not in the loop at all. Prior to Peter being named as the next victim, Paul and Ed did a beautiful job, a wonderful job, for lack of a better way of saying it, of keeping us in the loop. They would let us know what they knew. Once Peter was named as a victim, as the next intended victim, we never heard anything. I mean, it was like a wall of silence went up. And for the first week, I just assumed it was everyone sort of reacting to the new normal. The new normal now was Peter's name was public and Peter was the next victim. So for that first week, I didn't really panic that we were going to remain in the dark. But when I woke up that following Monday to the headlines that Peter was afraid to die, then I was very concerned, because that was the first that myself and his brother and sister had heard that he had written that. That was not what he had expressed to his sister in her letter. So it was very disturbing and particularly painful for Jana and Sam to hear about that in the news and not know that that's something that was going to be put into the news media.
What's it like for an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old to have to deal with a situation like this? Can you even put that into words?
It's hard for me as an adult who's experienced a lot of loss to even wrap my head around what has happened. And for this to be their first real experience with loss, it's been devastating. And for them to be kept in the dark and to not be allowed to help fight for their brother, really added to that, really added to the damage and to the trauma that they experienced by just trying to come to grips with what happened. You know, their brother didn't just die, and that's horrible enough. You know, their brother was murdered, and they weren't allowed to do anything to try to help secure his release, and that was devastating to them.
There are people who may see this and say, you know, you gave Peter up for adoption, you signed away your rights. What did you expect from the government? What do you say to those people?
I did sign away my legal rights, but that doesn't make us less of a family for Peter. And Jana and Sam didn't sign away any rights. They are Peter's brother and sister. And Peter wanted to be a member of our family, and Peter was a member of our family. Jana and Sam are his blood relatives. They are his brother and sister. They are no less a brother and sister than any other brother and sister than I was to my own brothers. And you know, Peter knew that. I mean, at 18, Peter figured out something that most of us haven't been able to figure out, and that's what it means to be a family. You know, Peter loved beyond boundaries and limits, and our family wasn't about adoption versus biology. It was about love, and we loved Peter. Peter considered me a mom. I considered him a son. He was my son, and he's Jana's brother and sister. And that's not how we, and particularly Jan and Sam, were treated. And we were not asking to be at the family table, so to speak, at strategy sessions. We were not asking to be included in trips to Washington, D.C. That's not what we were asking for. We were simply asking to receive victims' assistance so that Jan and Sam could receive counseling that helps with this kind of traumatic grief. That's what the FBI specializes in. So whether or not they grew up with Peter or they met him when they were 10 or 12 should not eliminate them, should not keep the government from offering them the assistance that they need and that they needed at that time.
What reasoning has the government given you for why they can't qualify or don't qualify for that victim's assistance?
It depends on when you ask them. When I asked repeatedly for assistance, I was told that we did not meet the legal definition of next of kin. And when I would push back on that and explain that our not being next of kin did not make us less of a family, what I was told is that they were not accustomed to dealing with such a unique situation. And again, I pushed back and said, well, how many families in this country are traditional? Most of the families I know are blended in some way. And I find it really hard to believe that we were the first non-traditional family that the FBI had ever dealt with. But they fell back on that all of the time. You're not the legal next of kin. And I would acknowledge that. But Jana and Sam are Peter's brother and sister. And in Peter's darkest moments, he was thinking about his mom, his dad, and his brother and his sister. And he was given the opportunity to write 2 letters. And one of those was to his sister about her and about her brother, Sam. So clearly, for Peter, they were the most important people in his life. And shame on the government for treating them as if they didn't matter, as if they didn't exist. And Peter would be horrified and ashamed that the 2 people that he cherished the most, that he chose to write to under those kind of conditions, are told that they're not enough of a family to consider for assistance. Now, of course, when that came public, that that's how we felt as a family, they then said, well, no, we actually are inclusive. We do offer victims assistance. But I still haven't gotten that phone call. We still have not been offered assistance. And Jana and Sam were not allowed to in any way participate in helping secure Peter's release while he was still in captivity. And that's something that they're going to have to live with for the rest of their lives.
How are they doing now?
It's tough. It's tough to go on and do normal things when you've lost someone that you love that much in such a horrific way. Jana is trying to finish out her junior semester at college, and while she's receiving a lot of support from the university, it's hard to study for a stats exam when you're thinking about your big brother being tortured for the last year and then being brutally murdered, and then wanting help and being told by the government that you don't count enough for that. And Sam, very much the same, trying to figure out what's the new normal. Wants his big brother back. He was their big brother, and Peter was a big brother. Everything that Peter did, he did with, just fully embraced every moment of life, and they want him back. We all want him back.
How do you want Peter to be remembered?
Oh, I want Peter to be remembered for his limitless capacity to love. Peter didn't show up and meet his brother and sister and say, you're my half brother and sister, therefore I have the half amount of love to give you. When he met Jana and Sam, he was their brother. When he met me, he was my son. When he went to Syria and cared for the Syrian people, he loved them. Peter, he knew no boundaries when it came to love. And I want people to remember that about him. I want them to remember what a big heart that he had. And he really demonstrated for all of us that one person really can make a difference, and that even the smallest act of kindness make a difference in this world. Peter was amazing. It's a real loss.
Your family did have the opportunity to hold their own memorial service, a small private gathering. What did you do to honor his memories and honor his life?
That was real important for us to have that. We needed to remember Peter as a member of our family. And Jana and Sam needed the opportunity to finally speak about their brother. And we also wanted him to be honored as a veteran. So our service was with full military honors. It was really very important to Jana and Sam that take place. They wanted to make sure that the Ranger Creed was part of the service, and it was really beautiful. Each one of us, myself and both Jana and Sam, spoke about Peter and how we each knew him. Jana had the opportunity to read from her letter that she received from Peter, and Sam had a chance to talk about what it felt like to lose time with someone, and that he learned that time is not infinite. And we had all our family and friends there, most of which had met Peter. When Peter came into our lives, he came into our lives. He went places with us. He met our friends. He met other family members. And so they all wanted the chance to honor Peter in the way that they knew Peter. So it was a beautiful service.
What was it like for you to give Peter up for adoption, but then have him come back into your life and come back in and really, truly become a son of yours?
As a birth mom, it's hard not to wish for that to happen. But after I made the adoption plan for Peter, I wanted to live my life in such a way that if I was fortunate enough that my son wanted to find me again, that I would be the kind of person that he would be proud of. And so I always hoped that he would come back, but I knew that I couldn't live my life expecting that. And so I am still amazed that I was blessed enough to be one of the birth moms that got to have their child come back and find them. And then not only, he didn't just find us, he became a part of us. And it wasn't storybook, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't a made-for-TV movie. Peter was a complicated individual, and there were good times and there were not good times, and there were wonderful times and there were difficult times. So in other words, we were like every other family. And I'm just fortunate that I got the time with them that I did.
Would you mind reading part of the letter that he sent to his sister?
Not at all.
Okay, perfect.
Is it nearby?
It's in the folder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it right over here somewhere? No?
Oh, did you move it?
With the green font on it?
With the green phone on it. I think it's right on the top here.
It's over here. Just use your green phone. I know how you girls
And this
are.
was one of the letters that he wrote while in captivity that another
Yes.
hostage took out.
Brought
and-
out
okay.
for, yes, Peter was allowed, well, we don't know how many letters he was actually allowed to write. All we know is that 2 letters were allowed to be brought out by one of the freed hostages, and one of them was written to Jana. And it just says Jana, oh boy.
Take your time, take your time.
Okay. The first and most important thing to remember is that I love you and Sam. I'm sorry. Is that I love you and Sam more than words can ever express. I am afraid, of course, but I am at peace with my situation, and I will face whatever comes with as much dignity and faith as possible. It is very important, Jana, that you do not let anything that may happen to me pull you down. No matter what, I will be okay. I can handle it, and I chose to come here knowing the risk and doing what I could do to help others the best way I know how. If I have to die, that's as good a reason as any. Now, I have to be a big brother for a bit, even though I've been slacking for a while. I have made many mistakes, but I've also seen and done quite a bit in a short time. Despite the fact that you are 2 times as smart as me and 8 times as mature, there may be a few bits and bobs here and there I can pass on to you that you may find useful. Number 1, family is undeniably the most important thing. If there is one thing I wish I appreciated more, focused on more, and missed the most, is my family. When everything else is gone, family is all you have. Belief. It's important, Janet, to find, develop, and maintain an ethos of some sort. It will give you direction and purpose. It can be an incredible source of strength, inspiration, motivation, and resilience when things get tough. Education is paramount. Get as much of it as you can and work hard in your classes. Never ever stop reading, Jana. Try to learn something new every day. Pick a career path that drives you and challenges you. but make sure you follow your passion. Don't be afraid to take risk, and don't waste time doing something that makes you miserable. Life is way too short. Number 4, make sure you take time for the little things. Remember, you always have more time than you think you do. Read, go for walks, dance, sing, and laugh. Number 5, civic duty. I encourage you to embrace the concept of responsibility to your fellow man and to your community, however you choose. Number 6, marriage and family. I hope you do whatever makes you the most happy, whether that's marriage and kids or not, that's up to you. But Jana, no matter what, always maintain your independence. And number 7, never be afraid to love. I will be happy if you are happy. Finally, live abroad, travel, cause trouble, take risk. I suggest you travel as much as you can. Cause some mischief here and there, and don't play it too safe, but please be careful. I pray for the chance to see you and Sam again. I love you so much it hurts, and I think of you all the time. Never give up, never stop loving. Your brother always, Peter.
That had to mean a lot to them to see that letter, to both of them, and hear.
It did.
What would you say to Peter if you could give him one message, if you could send him a letter like that? What would it say?
Oh gosh, we all would give anything to have one more moment, you know. Sorry. I would tell him how proud I am of him. And I would tell him that I love him, and that I always loved him, and I always will love him. And I would tell him that Jana and Sam are going to be okay, and that he was a good big brother, and he was always a good big brother, and that we all make mistakes, but that we all love him very much.
You did a wonderful, wonderful job.